to share the hope. Um, this is a live feed that we're going to be doing. We've been just kind of getting used to doing live feeds, and we're finding out we can educate more people. Our topic today is being a diabetic. I'm a diabetic. I was diagnosed at older age, but I don't take insulin, but I do take medication that helps to control my sugar levels so that they don't skyrocket. You have to be careful. Life for a diabetic is definitely a change. We have a guest today that we're going to do a question and answer with her because she's a little unique, and I want to explain as we go on. Hi, welcome to our live feed.
Hi.
We have some questions to ask you, and some of the questions, you may want to answer it, or you may say, I don't really want to answer. But how long have you been a diabetic?
More than 30 years. Getting closer to 40 years every day.
Okay, and
I was 2.5 when I was diagnosed.
okay, and how did they determine that you? What did your parents do?
So I have a vague memory of when it happened. I remember being thirsty. I don't have the best memory, but the story I was always told is I was at a theme park and always asking for a drink. I was always thirsty, drink that drink right up, but then I instantly had to use the restroom. And it was kind of getting frustrating to my parents because, and she can elaborate on this, because there was no balance of go have fun. It was bathroom, drink, bathroom, drink. And they ended up taking me to the doctors and finding out that I was a diabetic. And I remember my mom saying, she had a comment to when the doctor asked, "Why aren't you more upset? What was the reason you came up?"
And I said to the doctor, you didn't say she was dying. You said that she was a diabetic and that we would have to learn to cope with it. And right after we found out, we went to a very special person in her life, which was her grandpa. And I went up on the farm, his little mini farm, and he was mowing, and he stopped mowing, and I said, "Dad, I got some news to share. Um, your granddaughter's a diabetic. She's a juvenile diabetic, and she had high blood sugars, and they want to put her on more of a control." And I can just see him dropping his head to his mower and says, "Oh my gosh, I wish it was me. I don't wish it was her." And I felt so bad for him because I didn't know what to say to him. He didn't want her to suffer, and I think part of it, he took that all the time, thinking, "Oh my gosh, it had to happen to her," and I think that kind of bothered him. Another question I want to ask you: do you go to a special doctor to manage your diabetes?
So I do. I know you don't. I go to an endocrinologist.
Okay, what makes him such a specialty of the diabetes?
Because endocrine system is part of this thing. I mean, he specializes in some other fields or other areas as well, but he checks things like your A1C. He checks things like I wear a pump, a diabetic pump that constantly gives me insulin. Some people have to take shots. My pump is not updated by any means. I can't afford to do that type of update, but he tries to balance, how do I feel better? How can I lose weight? Obviously I struggle with losing weight, but there's many causes to why I struggle. As I've gotten older, I've I chose my current endocrinologist when I was 16 years old, and I've stuck with them almost the entire time since then. The first pump I ever had was with him in high school, and I had to learn how to be an athlete in high school and be a diabetic. But yes, it was an endocrinologist.
Okay, what was it difficult being a diabetic and playing your sports? And by the way, what sports did you play?
Absolutely. It was the most difficult one of the most difficult times in my life, because I was the second diabetic to ever go through my school district. The first one was about 20 years prior to me. Um, it was hard to balance blood sugars because I played basketball, and obviously you can't have a pump on in basketball, and my sugars would skyrocket. I'd have to take my pump off while I'm playing. At halftime, I would try to, accommodate what my sugars were. There were times that I had to leave so I had to be like, I cannot play, and had to run to the locker room because I could tell my sugars were getting out of control. Softball, it was a little easier because I played first base, so it's not like I had to run all over the place. Um, there would be times I would take it off, like if I was batting to protect it. But yeah, I mean, I think my biggest struggle growing up in sports is nobody understood diabetes like they do today at all. I was educating more people than getting help from people.
Okay, were you ever discriminated from, how young kids go to parties, go to sleepovers? Were you ever discriminated and not asked to go because of your diabetes?
I'm sure. I mean, nothing against people that I grew up with, so if you're seeing this, nothing against it. But I know people didn't know what to do. I mean, it literally was everyone. Teachers didn't know what to do. Friends didn't know what to do. I remember going to a class once, and the only reason I made it to the class, my sugar plummeted, is because there's like this internal knowledge of what's going on that I can't express with a very low blood sugar. And I knew we were going from one classroom to another, and one of my friends, I could even tell you the color, she had a green shirt on, and I followed that green shirt to the classroom. Couldn't express something was wrong, so the teacher told me I needed to sit down. I remember hearing that, but I just turned around and walked away. Nobody came to help me because the teacher had no intention of having someone help me. So yeah, I had friends that I know didn't invite me to things, especially when I was younger. When I was in high school age, I was able to express what was going on more, what my symptoms were, when I knew a problem was coming. Um, but I will even say this in college. So everyone has test anxiety. My test anxiety caused super highs and super lows. It was never my full ability. I graduated high school like with one of the highest GPAs, and I go to college, and the disability coordinator, because I had to go through a disability coordinator, she looked me in the face and said, I don't think college is for you because my diabetes reflected the way they did. And I'll just say this at the moment, college went different, and I was very proud of what I came up with as a solution than most students probably even realize they could do today.
Now, you keep saying that your sugar levels sometimes are up at the highs and also the lows. What's the highest you've ever been? Sugar level.
So my monitor from home said high. It wouldn't even give me a sugar, and that means I am over 600. I have gone into ketoacidosis, and at that time my sugar was over 1,000. Basically, my pump stopped working. Everything stopped working for me. I could not get things to go right. So I know it's over 1,000. I don't know the exact number.
Were you sick when you had ketoacidosis?
Oh, so sick. Like, I remember the first time I ever had ketoacidosis. Again, I'm sure my family thought I was crazy, but I'm like, watch this. And I didn't know I was going through ketoacidosis at the time, but I'm like, and I wanted to get like a sugar-free Gatorade, something with electrolytes that you want to keep down. And I drank it, and I instantly got real sick. Like, basically, I couldn't keep even water down. And so when that happened, I ended up going to the hospital. Long story there, but it happened again in my lifetime, and I was actually at work. I was competent enough to tell somebody I need help. And I called my family in the middle of the night, and I didn't want to go to the hospital because I remembered how the first time around went. But second time around, they're like, "Oh, we're not going to take you," and I ended up in the hospital.
So all along, could you say yourself was a brittle diabetic?
I was diagnosed as a brittle diabetic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a perfect diabetic, so I don't want to sit here and let any viewer think that you should follow what I tell you to do. Absolutely not. My life has been up and down. I've had stressors. There's times my insurance wouldn't cover things like strips. So I had to figure out how to get checked. And let me tell you, I think that is the worst part of it here in America. I don't know what other countries are like. I've heard Canada's nice. I've heard parts of Europe's nice. Here in America, if your insurance doesn't cover it, you pay out of pocket. And like my insulin, my little vial of insulin, the thing I need to live that's in my pump. There was a point they told me that's $1,000 a vial. And my insurance at my work changes every 2 years. So I had to figure out how to survive for 2 years, basically paying out of pocket. And I get the struggle. I have written letters to many high up sources, and I've had responses back, and I see how it helps for a moment and then it's gone again. And I've been told my letters have been used in very political ways to try to help diabetics, but I didn't have a choice. I guess I never realized how people struggle that don't have jobs that could be diabetic. Trust me.
Oh,
I don't know what questions are to come, so I'll go from there.
I have a story to tell you. She mentioned the vial being $1,000. When we first took her to the hospital, she was in her gown to go to diabetic class. There was a guy that sat behind her, and he basically stated he wouldn't take any more insulin. He was just going to live his life the way he wanted to. And I looked at him and I said, "You're telling my young daughter right now that you're not going to take care of yourself. So you're telling me she doesn't have a chance to survive because of that." "Oh, no, that's me. And I said, "You're diabetic. She's a diabetic. She needs to be taught that she has to take care of herself." She talked costs of some of this stuff. This stuff for her is beyond belief. She wants sensors. She needs sensors to be able to keep control of her diabetes. A sensor runs approximately,
well, let's just say it this way. To have sensors, I would hit my out-of-pocket max in a month, in 1 month's time. So I'm not going into details because I know all insurances are different out-of-pocket max and deductibles and stuff like that. But to hit my out-of-pocket max within a month, that is more money than I make in 3 months. So I'm being told to choose between eating and covering my sensors. And the sensors will get covered once I hit out-of-pocket max, but there's a balance of where does the money come from? Because I don't get to pay payment plans. And those sensors, this is what I've told many people, that I don't understand how insurance works. And the insurance I have right now is supposed to be one of the better ones, but you will cover things like strips and you'll cover things like needles. And you don't want to cover all these doctor's appointments. Let me tell you what those sensors would do for a diabetic. And I hope government officials get to see this as well as insurance companies. Those sensors will stop a lot of the specialists I have to go to due to complications of not being able to constantly check my sugar because I can't afford things like the strips. So yeah, it's an expense I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy.
So it's a very costly disease, and it's a disease that cannot just go away. Once you're diabetic for life.
Depending. There's pregnancy diabetics. There's people that become diabetic just during their pregnancies. There's some, like doctors have said to me that if we get this more under control, we could not get rid of insulin, but almost like you got rid of it. but they can't figure out how to do it with me because I can't afford to get checked like a diabetic should. It's rough.
Oh, there's one question. Recently, you got told that, and again, it's an insurance issue, that you have to be careful on how many strips, how many checks you do. Explain that a little bit more.
So I am part of like a disease management program. I learned this years ago that be part of that program because some things will get covered because you are. Basically, you have to answer a call every couple months or every month. You have to maybe fill out a questionnaire, and there'll be tips given. Well, what I was recently told is basically I can get checked no more than 3 times a day. We just discussed why I need more than that. There's complications I've gone through because I can't get checked. And hold some other criteria that I have to meet or I'm dropped from the program. Well, I have medical issues outside of my diabetes that fight a lot of those medical issues. So my diabetes, either treat your diabetes or treat this other life-threatening problem. And I choose what's worse if I have to. If I can handle both, I handle both. But there are situations or medication that I have to take that will fight one another. And I work with my doctors. My insurance doesn't work with my medical situations that go across different issues. So yeah, basically I can get checked 3 times a day to have things covered.
Okay, as being her mother, I always taught her that she had to have a survival pack. A survival pack is, it doesn't matter if she's at work or she's at school or she's at an athletic event. What do I mean by a survival pack?
Depends on the age that I was. So as a kid, my parents came or my siblings came to games. My siblings were younger than me, but survival pack might be a couple dollars. And that could be, you're at a game and your sugar's plummeted. You need to go get juice in you now. And you only have so much you can carry. So I run to the concession stand and get a Gatorade. If it was something like at school, basically I would have something in my office at the time, and I don't know if they can do that now, but I can run into the office and go grab glucose tablets, or I can grab a little thing of crackers. It definitely also included, as I've gotten older, even in higher, like in high school, pump supplies, needles for emergency injections, insulin. For me nowadays, a typical, emergency kit is I have at my work, like juices that I could take. And yeah, there's expiration dates on all these snacks. So you can't keep them there forever. So if it's something that I can include in a meal, say right before its expiration, I will. And then I'll replenish my supply or replenish my, diabetic supplies. As you get older, it's easier to carry with you because you just put it there and you don't worry about it anymore. As a kid, because I know kids could be watching this, you have to figure out how to do it best. Where am I going to be? What will I need if there's an emergency? I will say I went through a lot. Like I said, people didn't understand it. And I had once told a coach in one of my sports, and guys, if you know who I am, I'm sorry that I didn't tell you these things as a kid. But I ran into a situation where I told a coach that I had a medical emergency going on, and I was told to handle it. And the medical emergency wasn't a low, it was a high. My insulin wasn't working. And I basically had to look around the corner to my parents. I had to leave at the end of I couldn't ride with my team anywhere. I had to leave with my parents because I was headed towards the hospital otherwise. I didn't have help. I had to figure out what to do. So know your diabetes. I will say this, in my lifetime, I've always said to teachers, I've said, doctors have agreed with me, no 2 diabetics are the same. My symptoms will be different than her symptoms. Like high blood sugar, I get so dry mouth thirsty, it's not funny, but everything tastes horrible. She doesn't have the same thing I do. And another kid or another student today might not have the same thing because they have new developments that I didn't have growing up. So know what you need for that supply kit. I used to carry things like orange juice. I would have, like, I had an aide in school that if I was high, and I don't think they do this anymore, I would be running laps in a gym to try to bring my sugar down. Now, this is pre pump, when the pump didn't exist yet. Now, now that you have the pump, it would be more you know, calibrate what you need, but pumps run out. Pumps need insulin refills with new things. You might need to take a shot because your pump's failing. I've had that in the last week. My pump has failed 3 times, which is very costly to have it fail, but you have to know you need your shot. So, sorry, this is a long answer to what do I have in a medical box. I know my needs. You need to know yours if you are a diabetic watching, or if you're a parent or a sibling or a best friend. If you see your friend at a game and not responding well, go in their bag because they know you have this supply kit. Take their juice and put it in front of them, tell them to drink. Because maybe that friend of yours that's diabetic is so out of it at this point they can't go grab it themselves. Hopefully they catch it before then, but I've run into situations that I have, in the middle of the night, went to the fridge, sat on the ground, and just drank orange juice out of the jug. Told my family the next day so they didn't have any worries, but know tell your friends, tell the people you're comfortable telling. You may need help, but know what to put in your kit.
I do have to say that we struggled for a long time because when she entered school, I was a teacher, so I went in and we had many meetings about Cameron, or about my daughter, and I finally got her an aide that would help get her checked to make sure she was at a specific thing, and the teachers were told not to let her walk down to the office because she could collapse at any time if she had a low. So a lot of times the teachers were not educated, and I can say as a teacher, I don't think we were educated enough how to handle a diabetic, because there was a lot of things people didn't realize. Oh, was I supposed to send someone down with her?
Like, this is when I was in school.
Yeah.
Things I know have changed because of things that like my school district today, I know knows more because my mom was my advocate, essentially. She would find things out, and as I've gotten older, things that kids had in kindergarten, which I should have had, I had basically from 8th grade on because my mom would advocate. But yeah, kids back when I was there, no, I did not have what I had an aide to go to, but very often teachers wouldn't send me with somebody there. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine, but I do want to say something else.
So I will say this: we got a watcher right now. Tell them what you're talking about.
Diabetes, and going through life and what you could get, benefits you need, insurance, schooling, that type of thing.
Okay, go ahead.
I will say that we had to advocate because Kimmy, my daughter, was a very smart person in school. She excelled beyond belief on academics. But there were times that the diabetes would be a major issue when she was taking a test. So she needed to have extended time on tests. Well, we finally fought through and ended up getting her the term IEP.
No, mine was a 504.
Oh, 504. So, excuse me. It's a 504.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about that and include that in college too? How it went with you to college?
So basically, an IEP, like I'll tell you what an IEP is. That is for different types of disabilities. It could be a learning disability where you need an aid to read something to you. I didn't need that per se. My 504 basically accommodated my disability to what I do in school. And this is where I said that I had a disability coordinator tell me I'll never make it through school because I have a 504, which I know that is technically not something anyone should ever say to anyone with any disability ever, but I'm going to prove you wrong. But a 504 gave me extended time. So things like because I had test anxiety, I had taken ACTs due to the regulations in my state. And at the beginning, I went and took the test, and with the anxiety, my sugars were doing this little thing. But in the end, because I had the 504, we learned, oh, you can take it in a different setting with snacks available, or pump supplies available, and be able to get checked, but extended time. I'm like, okay, 100%. As I got into college, I did learn in college they don't do the 504. The IEP is the more helped, I don't even know what program, I guess I would say. 504, not so much. 504, I got my extended time, but should I say what I did? So I know myself. I understood what was being taught to me in class. I understood how to apply what I was being taught in the outside world. But test day, I don't know what it was. My sugars would just go crazy. So very young.
Alexa, stop.
Very young, I learned the problem being I couldn't do it. So when I was a freshman in college, I tried it out. Basically, the first day of class, I would meet the new professor. The professor introduces themselves. They have basically no idea that I have an issue. But at the end of class, and either I would go with them to their office, or I would go straight up to them before the next class would come in and go, introduce myself. Hi, I'm Cammie. And basically, I would lay out my issues without laying out my issues. I didn't tell them my whole history. But what I looked them in the face and said is, I know I can do this class. However, tests are not my thing. I need extended time in a general setting if that's what you want. But let me tell you why we should do something different than tests. And I would say we, not me. I would say we. And then I'd let them decide how to take this later. And in the end, my classes either got take-home tests. So there were times where the teacher's like, absolutely not. You will get the extended time. Someone wouldn't let me go to the disability center with the extended time because I couldn't do that in the classroom. Some would tell me I have to do it right at their office. I'm like, okay. But most often we had alternate testing. So alternate testing being the take-home test. Instead of a time test, we could have chosen to do essays. And my classes benefited from this too. But it was all because I was advocating for myself. I was now an adult. My parents couldn't advocate for me. No. And I went in and said, this is how I am. How can I do this for you better? And most teachers or professors were accommodating.
No, I do want to stress too, she's pretty much taken over control of everything that she has. I still have the worry about her because when she does have lows, she really drops. And she's not really, she knows when she's dropping. We have to bear with her and help her as much as we can. But there's issues that, still worries me. When she drives a car, what do you do when you drive a car and you happen to feel a little funny? What's your procedure for handling that?
So basically, before I get in the car, I am to see if I'm okay to drive. Like that could be getting my blood checked, also maybe grabbing something to eat. But if I'm in the middle of driving, because it has happened, believe it or not, diabetics, you're gonna run into it all. If I'm in the middle of driving and even if I think, oh, I can make it a couple more miles and I won't have an issue and I'm almost home, if it becomes to a point I notice it, I have to pull over. And I would wish you would, just kind of like everyone knows, drunk driving is not a good idea. Driving with a low blood sugar is basically, in my opinion, the same as driving drunk. You are risking other people on that road as well as yourself.
I do want to stress too, your doctor has to sign up.
So I don't know if that's all states. That might be just where I'm from.
Let's talk about your state.
So where I'm located, my doctor, since I was 16, has always had to sign off on, can I drive? when I was younger, it was every year I had to renew it. Now they sign off that every 3 to 5 years. I think this current one I'm on a 5 year span, and so in 5 years I'll go back and doctor's got to sign off. I'm still good. Basically saying that I know what I got to do to drive.
Okay, and that's she's been the type of person that's basically tried to educate others, but also let people know what she's had to do to help them along. And that's the one thing with this learning educational thing we're doing right now. We want people to know. I do want to share a story. It's kind of a funny one, but it kind of sums it up. When she was younger, we have an ice cream stand real close to our house, and her aunt was babysitting her.
So young.
Go ahead. You want to?
So, okay. I was a smart kid. Again, I'm not saying people need to be at the high level to do what I did, and you should never do this, kids. I was just, when I was in elementary school, so I would say probably maybe 8 years old. Probably 8 years old, because my sister, I don't think was here yet. But I was being babysat, and all I would see every day is my friends got ice cream and chocolate and all the best snacks that a little kid just thrives on. And where my elementary school was, it wasn't far from an ice cream stand. And my aunt, was babysitting me. And I didn't know, but I had a feeling my aunt didn't know all the rules, mom and dad gave me. And I knew my mom and dad would find out later. I wasn't that naive, but I go, to my aunt, and she's like, "Are you allowed to have ice cream?" And I go,
Chocolate.
No. Are you allowed to have ice cream? And I go, "Yeah, just one though. I can only have one, and I'd like to have chocolate."
Tell them what you guys are talking about. We just got a person come in right now.
We're talking about diabetics, managing diabetes, how to get through school as a diabetic. If anyone has questions, please feel free to jump in.
Comment below.
I was the first diabetic to go through my school district. Well, second, 20 years prior, one went through before me. But what you need to do to thrive as a diabetic, basically, and what you got to do. But my mistake as a kid, going back, was I told my aunt when she asked me if I could have ice cream. I go, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, what kind can you have?" And I'm like, "Chocolate." Well, that wasn't true. Obviously I paid for it. My sugars went up, and my aunt ratted me out to my parents and said she said she could have it. And yeah, I was taught as a kid, don't you dare do that again. But I knew how kids were being treated, and to be honest with you, kids knew I was being treated different too. They hated if I dropped. I got to walk away and have a snack. They're like, "Why don't I get a snack?" They tried really hard to have me take a snack when I was in a different room, in the back room of the classroom or in the office. But there are times things had to happen in front of them. And again, this is as a young kid. So you young kids today, tell your friends. Tell them what you're comfortable with. I was in the state of, I was the first kind of thing. Nobody else in my school district had it when I was growing up, as far as we knew. And I had to, when mom and dad wasn't there, I had to advocate for myself. I had to tell people, well, the reason I have a snack is because I might pass out, or the reason I have to go run in the gym while you're in class is because I might have to go to the hospital if I don't. But trust me, I'm missing out on the education you guys are, so I have to catch up to that too. So I always had to be on top of my game, even when I was sick, when I was low, when I was in the hospital. Because life hits you hard. And don't get me wrong, I'm learning this as an adult. Life hits you hard. All of a sudden, you realize all your problems are going to cause more problems. But you. Tell your teachers that there's a situation, and then if you don't feel comfortable as the kid, tell your parents or ask your parents, "Please, can you have this conversation? I don't know how to say it right, and do what you got to do. As you get older, I promise you, you'll know your limits. You'll know what'll cause issues. Things I've learned as I've gotten older, like eating a piece of bread with 10 carbs in it is not the same as eating a piece of candy with 10 carbs or a fruit with 10 carbs. Insulin acts different for each item. Didn't know that until I got to where I'm at now. And I have to accommodate based on what I go through. And you'll learn that it's rough at the beginning, but I know things are different today.
I do want to say something too. As you go through, just so you know, insulin has a natural smell to it, and occasionally it could be because her inset that goes into her could be leaking, and she'll say, "Mom, can you check? There might be a smell coming out of it." And lo and behold, there's a smell of insulin. Well, there was a situation in the junior high that some teachers, and I don't want to say because I don't want to run teachers down. They should have been more educated about a diabetic, but they approached me about my daughter having a smell to her, and I looked at them and I said, "That's her insulin. Something's telling me that insulin is coming out of Cammie the wrong way, and she has to change something to make it not do that." But these teachers pretty much made I don't know, how would you say it?
I'll be honest, I'll just say it. It's kind of embarrassing, but I'll say it. I was approached like I didn't shower every day, and I showered every day.
Mm-hmm.
Every day, and sometimes multiple times a day because I was an athlete as well. And people just didn't understand. Like, this pump, I'm going to show you. This is not what I had when I was younger. Things have changed. And this is an older model too. But this has this insulin inside it. This is hooked to me. Has this insulin inside it. My pump smells like insulin. So back in the day, when it's newer, this thing's always smelled like it. And as I got more confident, people would ask me, "What does that smell?" I'm like, "It's probably me." I won't show you what's hooked into my skin, but basically what's hooked into my skin would, when I'd have to give insulin for like a meal, the way I would know it's leaking is it would almost look like I had water on it. And I'm like, "Oh no." And they're like, "What's that smell?" And I'm like, "I need to go change my pump." It's embarrassing, 100%. And I know when you're younger, you're looking at people going, I showered, I swear. And I was embarrassed as a child by a teacher. Now, again, I will give the teachers today and the coaches and the friends that I had back then, diabetes wasn't as known when I was growing up. Now, I will say this, when I was in high school, the third diabetic was in school.
Yeah.
And I think she might have been in elementary. I think she was in elementary when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fourth diabetic came soon after. And now today, diabetics are in schools and known. And schools, don't get me wrong, I can't say all schools work well with diabetics. I mean, I know what my situation was. And I don't know if they've changed. I've been out of school many years. But I learned as I got older to advocate for myself. I would go to the office and get checked because I didn't like getting checked in front of people, and some people don't like blood, and they see the blood in front of them and they're like, "Oh, I'm passing out." I've had to explain to countless people what I'm doing when I'm at a restaurant because I have to give insulin in that moment and my pump might not be working. I'm putting a needle in me. Tell me, guys, does that not look bad? You're getting a shot in front of the public and you're kind of trying to hide it. It looks shady. However, I would look at them and say, "I am a diabetic." There are things that I don't like revealing, but diabetes is not to be ashamed of. You can't control the fact that you are. I was 2.5. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what was going on when it happened, but I could tell you how to get through life today. Better than I was told back then. And my mom and dad tried to help me. My younger siblings even, to this day, if I'm shaky and I know, I'm like, There's times I will grab my machine and I'll grab a juice and I'll sit down because I know I'm about to be stuck there. And I'll get checked, and my sugars, my lowest in the last month or two was in the 30s. And it was a pump issue, and I was giving insulin with my pump, and I had to give a shot, but I had my supply stuff, my stuff I needed to accommodate that. Mm-hmm. So, I know everyone won't see this video today, but if in 5 years from now you look at this video and you're like, I have questions, ask it. If we see that you've asked, I will help every diabetic I'll run into. I've had people, I don't deal with the medical field, come in and tell me something's going on at work. My work has nothing to do with the medical field. And I'll give them input, hey, try this. Even if it's a different disability, I have a general idea what a 504 does versus an IEP. And I can't tell you how many people I'm proud to have. It was rough to go through what I went through, but I'm proud of how many people I know that I've helped today. And it's more than you can imagine. More doctors have been educated, teachers have been educated, students have learned what they're capable of and what they could ask for. Again, I didn't struggle the way others did. There's people that are dyslexic. I can't imagine what that's like. But if you're dyslexic, and I should say this, if you're not comfortable going to teachers, have your parents go to teachers, because those schools have to accommodate for you. They have to. You can't help who you are. And I don't know who's religious and who's not, but I will never forget, and I actually had somebody with Down syndrome talk to me recently, and he apologized for how he acted. And I go, don't you dare. And he goes, I can't help it. I'm real sorry. And he started to tear up. And I remembered what my parents told me. I asked him, I go, do you believe in God? And he goes, yeah, of course. I go, well, let me tell you what my parents told me. God knew you could handle it. God chose you. So there is a reason you go through what you do. You're special. And he knows you can help others. So I don't know if that's just my family. And again, this applies if you're not religious, if you don't believe in the same thing. You can help others with what you go through. And I was one of the first, and I've done everything I think I can.
Well, I think this live feed, we'll probably come back to it with maybe some other questions for her later on. You did very well. You covered a lot of details. If there's people out there that's wanting more information or has questions, I'm sure you'd be willing to help as much as you could.
Like I said, 10 years. If you watch this video in 5 and 10 years and YouTube is still a thing, post your question, because my goal is always to help others. And even if you're not a diabetic watching this, I bet you know one and you don't even realize it. Or you do realize it. And now you know what they go through or how to help them.
Okay, I'd like to thank you very much for
No
coming.
problem. And by the way, this is the mom that helped me. So I want to give her all the kudos for putting me through and getting me through that.
She did it all she could. All I did was instruct her.
And then I will say in the future, we're going to possibly do an interview on you, Mom, on talking more about what you're going through in your diabetic journey.
Okay. I do want to mention before we close on this, she did struggle a little bit with seizures. The doctors never determined if the diabetes was the cause of the seizures.
So at the beginning, they thought I was experiencing the seizures. But then as I got older, we figured out these seizures were happening with low blood sugars. So again, talk to your doctors. Doctors don't know everything.
Find out, because we didn't know.
And I had experience in those scenarios with my sister with those seizures.
Yep.
So you want anything else? You want to close it up, Mama?
Well, I think that's it for today.
All right, you just close the door, Mom.
Okay. Again, subscribe, hit the bell button. If you like this video or this live feed, we're going to do more live feeds. We got some other things too. And like I said, if we can help one person that's going through the same thing she's went through, that's why we're doing these live feeds. So, as I said before, bada bing, bada boom. See ya.